31. 331.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, Senate Bill 331 by Senator Owen provides relative to the Louisiana Scenic Rivers Act.
Senator Owen, could you tell us what the bill does and why do we need it and what's different from last year?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is basically it's a very similar bill to the bill I bought last year. The issue last year was that we added like the bill that I have today basically limits the Scenic River Act to a very small portion of the lower West Pearl River. These are we're basically trying to correct man-made issues that have occurred upriver. We have silting. We have garbage. We have all kinds of other like major issues going on. The river actually it's very similar to like the Mississippi at Atchafalaya situation where we're about to have a river shift on the Pearl River, which is by the way, it's also the border of Louisiana and Mississippi. So it's kind of a big deal, So we need to make sure that we can correct the river the way that we need to. This simply just removes the Scenic River Act for a short period of time. We're basically it was originally said 8 years. We spoke with the Wildlife Federation. They asked me to reduce it down. I said okay, and we reduced it down to 5 years. And we're just basically just trying to clean up the river, the lower Pearl River Basin.
Senator, so my understanding is the difference is you made the zone smaller? Or is it
Yes,
the
the zone is much smaller, and we removed all of the other rivers that everybody had an issue with.
And so you went from 8 years to 5 years?
8 years to 5 years, and we also basically this just includes the very very bottom half of the Pearl River Basin. So which isn't important though because we have several projects we need to get done. We have the Highway 90 bridge, which is our escape route on a hurricane. We can't get that bridge done because the river is completely silted in. We have no way to get a barge in there to do the work on that. We have the Fritchie Marsh estuary that's dying right now. Doubloon Bayou is completely silted in. Which is it's a huge river. Barges used to run down this thing, and we can't get a flatboat down the thing.
I think we've suspended before. Do you know what we've suspended before, the terms, or any other rivers in the state?
So they have actually suspended this for the Pearl River previously with Senator Hewitt. That was for a very specific project, and I believe that was 3 years. If that was her understanding.
Okay. I see no questions at the moment at the table. Is there an amendment for the bill?
We do have an amendment. Yes, we have an amendment.
Mr. Wilson, could you read
that
the amendment?
That adds basically just the tributaries, and in that particular area, and it also decreases the time.
So this actually does making the zone smaller and brings it down to 5 years.
Correct.
Mr. Wilson, could you read in the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is amendment number 2196, and that's what it does. It decreases the sunset period from 7 to 5 years, and it adds the tributaries in the defined area from Lock 1 to the Rigolets.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I will make the motion to approve Amendment 2196. Is there any objection to the approval of the amendment? The amendment is now part of the bill. Senator Lambert.
Y'all are still going to have to get core permits, correct?
That is correct. We do have CPRA we already have a number on our project actually. That's one of the projects, but it's on in this same area. And we have there's no real area to develop. The biggest concern people were having was you're opening this up to development. First of all, I don't even know any of the big developers, so that's not going to be an issue. and I will fight them to the death if that does occur. But there's no real place to develop on this river system. Like basically, Wildlife Fisheries owns the majority of the land in this area. The only private land is a few landowners, maybe I'd probably say, less than 100 for sure. And then we have, but the basin itself, though, drains out into an area that's over like 20,000 homes. So you're talking like the estimates are in that area around like 1.8 to 1.9 billion dollars in home value. And if the river silts in, it changes channels, then we're going to have we're already having flooding issues that are new, that have popped up because of this, because of things that the Corps did upstream, and some of the, you have to remember the Pearl River goes all the way up to Mississippi, so we're not just dealing with the Army Corps from New Orleans, we're dealing with the Army Corps from Vicksburg also, and it becomes a quandary,
All right.
Thank you, Senator Lambert. If we can get up for the table for a second, we have no further questions at the moment, but we do have some opposition wishing to speak. Ms. Emily Buxton from Nature Conservatory, come to the table. Mr. Matthew Allen from North Shore River Watch, could you come to the table? And Rick Owens, Louisiana Wildlife Federation, could you come to the table in opposition? And ladies first, introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon. My name's Emily Buxton. I'm the Director of External Affairs at the Nature Conservancy. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee today. I was also here last year for the 2 Scenic Rivers bills we looked at. Because of that, we also opposed this bill last year when it came to committee. We appreciate that the author has reduced the scope of the bill from last year's bill and that he's further reduced the scope through amendments. However, we still object to any removal of rivers from this program. The problems that the author was just describing can still be permitted through the department. If he wants to dredge or do a lot of the stuff he was talking about, the department will permit that for him. Like, honestly, this is really just about reducing paperwork, and the department would likely approve everything he's already suggested that isn't necessary. Additionally, he talked about the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps, he's still going to need a permit for that, so this bill isn't going to fix that problem either. There's already a lot of legal mechanisms in place to address these issues. Because if you lift all of this, anything could come in. He's saying that there isn't development right now, but there could be development. Anything could happen. This isn't a specific plan either. So last year, I don't know if you remember, but when we had the Comeet River bill, which is similar, we didn't object to that bill, and that was because that one had a plan that the commission was going to go through with, and we understood that they were just trying to execute this plan that was already in place. He hasn't made it clear, Senator Owen, that there is a plan for this, except for the fact that the river silted there, basically. He can still address all the problems. Currently, the department would permit all of those things. If we remove this, protection, then really we end up having, a lot of other people coming and complaining about, another river that's silted in, which all of this can be currently done in the program. We don't want to set the precedent that we're removing rivers from the program, because then there could be even more degradation of a lot of these waterways, which are already imperiled. Thank you for the opportunity to listen to me today.
Thank you very much. Introduce yourself in the middle, please.
Thank you, Chairman Hinsgen. My name is Matthew Allen. I represent North Shore River Watch. And just to let you know where we are not extremists. We're looking for a balance with the different uses for the rivers and the competing interests. And I would like to thank you for the opportunity to put in this legislative process. It's good to see you all again. I hope you had a good year after last year. A couple of things here. Scenic Rivers, they inform how to do stuff. And let's just look at it closer. Natural rivers are very sensitive systems. As Senator Owens pointed out, we have issues because of the projects up in Mississippi. And yes, there are issues. And one of the issues he's having is that the dredging and clearing and channel restructuring, all that is actually prohibited under the Scenic Rivers Bill. And we find that moving totally to get out of it is not balanced. Okay? We're always concerned with exemptions to the Scenic Rivers Act, which protect our most valuable, unique, and treasured rivers, around which our communities form, a lot of recreation, and drive many local economies, including an extreme, how shall I put this, environmental tourism industry, especially around St. Tammany and Tangipahoa. This bill does have some issues. Now, the goals of flood prevention and navigation are very laudable. We do believe these goals are achievable with a scaled-back bill that would balance the environmental protections with the needed work. Considering the administrative code for the Scenic Rivers Act is undergoing regulation changes, shortening public comment periods and things like that, the first exception to the Scenic River Act gives the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers the right to dredge and desnag, clear the rivers for navigation and flood control. So we really don't have much of a problem with that part of the bill. The exemption for channel realignment and reservoir construction does raise red flags for us, with a vision of fighting a project in the future similar to that of the One Lake project up in Jackson, Mississippi, which poses a threat still to the West Pearl. Now, what we would like to ask is that the bill be amended to either remove the exceptions for channel realignment and reservoir construction, or alternatively, instead of just taking it completely out, allowing it to be permitted through the Scenic Rivers Act so the public can have a say in it. You know, somebody who did engineering, studied up in the Northwest or in the mountains, really is not going to have the same understanding of our river systems as the people that live and use these river systems. And the public participation aspect is very important to protecting our rivers. Now, if you do decide to allow this exception to go on to be able to be permitted by the Scenic Rivers Act, we would ask that you use the word may in that instead of shall. We're having issues because they put shall in some of these exceptions back in 2017 after the floods, and we've seen them just go, we have to give them the permit, and they've done some major damage with some of these river cleanings to the point where more trees fell in within the first year than they took out because of extra erosion and stuff. So really, it's natural for channels to change, and we're looking for a balance, and we're finding this is just not quite in balance with what is needed for the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Senator Duplessis with a question.
I have a question on the proposed change from shall to may. I don't know if that's something the author has considered or if he would be willing to consider, but if he was willing to consider and it went from shall to may, is there a set of criteria or standards that would define the may, or which would help guide under the permissive standard that is not required if it was no longer shall?
And really, I wasn't talking about the shall, just giving an example from past bills. And that shall really limits the Scenic Rivers Act and allows whoever wants to do something to do whatever they want, you know, as far as the parish governments and stuff like that. The may allows for more robust discussion of the best ways to go about these projects. Because if you do one thing wrong on these natural rivers, that has effects for 10, 20 years, downstream from it and upstream from it sometimes. So what we'd like to see is it to remain in the Scenic Rivers Act, but allow these things to be permitted for the West Pearl itself.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Duplessis. We have no further questions. Oh, yes, we do. Senator Lambert, sorry.
How long does it take to get a permit?
Currently, it's a 45-day public comment period, and then they have 30 days past that. But they're in the process of changing the LAC right now for it to make the public comment period 30 days and reduce the number of public notices.
Has there been any type of permit application for this?
Not yet. No, sir, not yet. At least that I've seen.
Okay, how long would it take to do that? I mean, if we do, I don't know what the project really is going to be. If there's been any, do you know if there's been any plans made?
I have not seen any plans yet. And Like I was saying, one set of view might do some major damage unintentionally. But with more eyes working on it, more people involved that actually know the systems, there's less likelihood of major damage happening to the environment and the river system and functions itself.
All right, so you haven't seen the proposed plan with the release of what's going to happen?
No, sir. And that's part of the scary part of just removing this from the Scenic Rivers Act for us.
All right, okay. That's it.
Thank you, Senator Lambert. Next up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Rick Owens, Louisiana Wildlife Federation. First, I'd like to thank Senator Owen for working with Louisiana Wildlife Federation. He was willing to meet with us on multiple occasions to discuss this bill and kind of work through some options. We appreciate his willingness to listen, consider some of these changes. With that said, we still have concerns similar to our colleagues here, and two being, one is the fact that we don't know exactly what the plan would represent. This type of action, while it seems this area is well suited for some work, a 5-year exemption would open this up to anybody that wanted to come in under this exemption from the outside that was not even involved in the process at this point, and they would also receive the benefit of this exemption to do types of works that possibly would not be in favor. So that's a concern of ours that remains, as well as the fact that this would set the precedence, for exemptions going forward for other areas that might be more sensitive or have more areas to follow up on these guidelines as guidelines to ask for a similar exemption. So we believe the projects affecting Scenic Rivers should continue to go through the existing review process, which is designed to evaluate those impacts on a case-by-case basis. However, this is a much improved version of the original legislation, and we would give Senator Owens that acknowledgement. However, because it still creates an exemption from the Scenic Rivers protections, LWF is unable to support the bill.
Thank you, sir. We have no questions.
Thank you.
We did have Mr. Lenny Kalpowski from St. Tammany Parish in favor, not wishing to speak. Mr. Charles Sutcliffe from the National Wildlife Federation Action Fund in opposition, not wishing to speak. And Maisley Orts, Louisiana Environmental Action Network, in opposition, not wishing to speak. Senator, you can come back to the table. I do have a question or two from opposition. Sure. Has anyone tried to get a permit to do this work?
Yes, so CPRA, and I wish I had the number with me for the actual project that's going on. We actually have a project right now with CPRA, and then we also have the Highway 90 bridge, which we put in for already put in for the federal funding. We got DOTD has already got some funding to get the bridges removed. I think that's going to go through.
So both projects have projects numbers somewhere to be done.
And I mean, they're like I can get those to you. I'm sorry for not having those today. I should have had those.
I just share the word that there's not some plan in place, and if there's a project number out there, there's probably some plan in place for some of this.
There is, and but the real issue is when you're talking about like getting, like for example, St. Tammany Parish government to come in and dredge out a bayou. They're only allowed to do half the work under the Scenic River Act. Like you can only do half a project at a time. So that's the real issue, and so they did this a few years ago, and when we're talking about a precedent, Senator Hewitt actually did remove this particular designation for this same portion of the river many years ago, and they cleaned out part of the bayou, but they didn't reroute the other part of the river that was actually silting in the bayou itself. So we're and these are not like huge projects that need to be done with the Army Corps and wildlife fisheries. These are canals and drainage ditches and things along those lines, but they're they're considered tributaries along the West Pearl River, the lower West Pearl River, which I want to emphasize too. This is not a humongous area. This is essentially like if you took a straight shot from Lock 1 to the Rigolets, you're talking about like a 3-mile area. But it does drain into estuaries. With the Fritchie Marsh estuary, which the Army Corps already has a project going on currently right now, is basically dying. If you look at a map, it's like it is green every other area, but this little square where the Army Corps is doing this project right now, because they have cut off the waterway, and the Army Corps is like, well, we're not going to like put another bayou into this area. Well, basically they blocked off the bayou that was feeding into that marsh. So there's just some basic things that very simple things, but every time we turn around and try to do a project, the Scenic River Act is we have the Scenic River Act. We can't do this project. We can't do this project, and it's just been this barrier.
We got Senator Lambert with one more question.
And I guess you may have answered it because I'm looking at this. I'm not familiar with the area. West Pearl River from Lock 1 to the Rigolets. The West Pearl River is not the state boundary line, is it?
It's not, but it does turn into the state boundary line at a point.
All right, so we're talking.
It's a delta.
All right.
So yeah. So this is the west. This is the west portion of the delta.
All right, so what we're talking about, though, from Lock 1 to the Rigolets, that's how many? It's
roughly, if you did a straight line, it's only about like 5 miles, but if you went down the actual river, it's probably about like 20 if you include all the curves and everything else.
all right, where would Lock 1 be in relation?
So-
all right, if I'm crossing
So yeah,
I-10,
yeah,
where
yeah.
would
If
that
you're going
be?
across I-10, so it's just north of that. I mean, literally, like maybe half a mile north of that.
Okay, because I'm not sure where Lock 1 was.
Yeah, sure.
So it's limited to that area and below.
It is limited to that area and below, and does not go into Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Warren, or the Rigolets. It's strictly just on the basic river system. And listen, I am willing. I've worked with the Wildlife Federation. I'm willing to. I did notice there was something that we needed to remove, reservoir construction. We absolutely need to remove that from this. That was just something that I overlooked, but that needs to be removed. Anything else that we need to work on, I'm willing to work with them, to make this bill in the right format.
Anything else?
Thank you, Senator Lambert, and that was going to be part of my questions, and we'll get staff to work on that between here and the floor. I hate to make them write amendments on the fly. Is that we sit down together and I get a better grasp, too, of what we're doing here, and
Sure.
maybe talk about 3 years instead of 5. I'd like to maybe see what the progress is and come back and renew from this committee one day. So that being said, what is the will of the committee? Thank you, Senator Jenkins. Senator Jenkins makes a motion to report SB 331 as amended. Is there any objection? With no objection, it is amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Senator Kleinpeter?